This video will help you review for your Unit 7 Formative 3. The topics covered will be area, circumference, 3D figures, and surface area. There are two shapes that you are required to learn in 7th grade. You need to be able to find the area and circumference of a circle and be able to find area of a trapezoid. Remember that you can use your NISA reference sheet for all of these. So first you would determine the type of figure that it is. Start with the formula. This one is a trapezoid. And the formula for finding area of a trapezoid is A is equal to 1/2 times the height times base 1 plus base 2. From there you need to determine what numbers to plug in for your height and for your two bases. Your bases are always your two parallel sides. So these are your two parallel sides right here. And it doesn't matter which one you consider your first base and your second base. So I'm going to say that base 1 is 16 and base 2 is 34. My height is how tall it is. So my height is this right here, which is 30. So I have 1/2 times 30 times my two bases added together, which is 16 plus 34. You always do parentheses first. 16 plus 34 is 50. So then everything else is just multiplication. So I have 1/2 times 30 times 50. You can either take half of one of these to start with, or you can multiply the two together and then divide by 2. If I multiply 30 and 50 together, I get 15 with 2 zeros on the end. And if I take half of 1500, you just divide that by 2, which is 750. So my answer would be 750 inches squared. Make sure that you always label area in squares. Next, you need to be able to find circumference and area of a circle. Make sure that you select the proper formula for each one. The formula for circumference of a circle, as you can see on your NISA reference sheet, is circumference is equal to pi times diameter. Looking at this circle, you know that the distance all the way across is 8 inches. So I'm going to plug in 8 for my diameter, and I know that I'm going to use 3.14 for pi, and all that means is I have to multiply those two. So off on the side, I take 3.14 times 8, and I just multiply a decimal like I know how to do. That would be 32, and that's 25, and I move it back 2 places. So my answer is 25.12. Now circumference is the distance around the outside of the circle. So I measure that like length. It's like how long of a string should I use. So the length around would be measured just in inches, not in inches squared. So it would be 25.12 inches. Then I'm going to consult my NISA sheet and see that the formula for area is pi times radius squared. Now in this circle I'm given my diameter. A radius is always half of that. So if all the way across is 8, I know that halfway across is 4. So I am going to plug in 3.14 for pi. My radius is 4, and I need to square that. That means 4 times 4, not 4 times 2. So 4 times 4 is 16. So the numbers that I need to multiply on this one are 3.14 and 16. So I'm just going to go off to the side, and I am going to do 3.14 times 16, and I just work through that multiplication problem. That's 24, and that's 8, and that's 18. I bring my 0 placeholder, and then I have 4, 1, and 3. I would add those up and get 4, 12, 10, and 5. And again, I move that decimal back 2 places. So my area is 50.24, and then don't forget the label, inches squared. You may be given figures that don't give you any numbers, but they will be located on a grid, and you can figure out all of the distances or the lengths that you know by counting on the grid. So if I asked you to find the circumference of this circle, first I would start with the formula, which circumference is equal to pi times diameter, and I know that I always use 3.14 for pi, and then I would look at my diameter, which is the distance across a circle, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So my diameter is 6, and then I would do the multiplication off to the side, which is 3.14 times 6, that is 24, that's 8, and that's 18. You move it back 2 places. So your final answer would be 18.84, and when you're talking on a grid, the label is always units, so that would be 18.84 units. Then, if you were asked to do area, you would look at your NISA reference sheet and write down the formula, which is pi times radius squared, and I know that pi is 3.14, and my radius, only halfway across the circle, is 1, 2, 3. So my radius is 3, and I square that. 3 squared is 9, not 6. So then I would go off to the side and do the multiplication of 3.14 times 9. 9 times 1 is 9, plus 3 is 12. 9 times 3 is 27, plus 1 is 28. You move it back 2 places. Put your decimal where it should be. And my area then is 28.26. And again, in this case, my label would be units squared. The next part of this unit is being able to identify which shapes are used to create a three-dimensional figure. The first shape that I'm going to look at is the cube. If you look at the front face right here, you can see that it is a square. And if you look, there are squares all the way around. So there's a square on the front, a square on the side, a square on the back, a square on the top, a bottom, and the left, which means that there are a total of 6 squares that make up a cube. There are no triangles, there are no circles, there are no hexagons. It is simply 6 sides that are the exact same, so there are 6 squares. The next figure that I am going to look at is a cylinder. If you look at the top, you can see that that top piece is a circle. And you can see that the bottom piece is exactly the same. So you would say that there are 2 circles in a cylinder. And then if you look at the lateral face, if you would cut that out and lay it straight, you would see that that is simply a rectangle. So a cylinder is made up of 2 circles and a rectangle. And then the third and final figure here is on the right, is your square pyramid. So that pyramid right there sits on a square, and a square is also classified as a rectangle, so you would just say that there is 1 rectangle, but it won't be counted wrong if you say square, because it could be a square. And then if you look on those sides, each of those sides, there are 4 triangles that come up and meet at that vertex at the top of your pyramid. So a pyramid is made up of 1 rectangle and 4 triangles. The last part of this unit is finding surface area of three-dimensional figures. You may or may not be giving a picture of the figure to start with. If you aren't and you feel most comfortable drawing a picture or knowing what it looks like, go ahead and draw a picture. So I'm going to draw a picture of this rectangular pyramid, and I'm going to do the best that I can. You don't have to be a great artist to do this. As you know, I am not. But I just need, a starting point for what a rectangular prism would look like, and I'm going to plug in my values that they give me. So they say that the length is 5, so I'm going to write 5 there. And then it says the width is 4, and my height is 2. Then I can use whichever method I want to figure out the total surface area. As you know, you can draw this out flat, what they call a net, and the net would have 4 rectangles, and then you have those 2 end pieces, and you can put those 2 end pieces at the top, at the bottom, in the middle, it doesn't matter. But then I would go ahead and write in the numbers of all of those values for each side. So I know that each one of these is 5. And then I look at those side lengths and I know that one of them is 4 and the other one is 2. So I plug those in, and then which also means that if this one is 4, I know that this one down here is 2 because the one across from it is also 4. So then you could go through and find the area of each of those rectangles in that net. So 2 times 4 on the side here would give you an area of 8. This one has a base of 5 and a height of 4, so that would be 20. This has a base of 5 and a height of 2, so that's an area of 10. And again, 5 times 4 would be 20, 5 times 2 is 10, and over here on the other side is 8. And to find the total surface area, you would add all of those up. And when you add those up for your sum, you would have, I always put easy numbers together, so I would put 20 plus 10, 20 plus 20 plus 10 plus 10 plus 8 plus 8. And you just add those up and get your total. 20 and 20 is 40. 10 and 10 is 20. So 40 plus 20 is 60. Plus 16 would be a total of 76. And your label is inches, so that would be 76 inches squared. Now, I gave you guys another method. I said that sometimes I don't draw the net. I like to look at them as individual pieces. In that case, you can highlight or look at the individual pieces of your figure. For example, I might use a different color to highlight my front, and I can see that my front is a rectangle. And if I look at that rectangle, I can see that it is 5 for the base and my height is 2, which is an area of 10. If my front is 10, that also means that my back is 10. Then I might look at another side. I might look at the right side. And my right side, if I look, I can see that it's a rectangle. I know that a rectangle is base times height. So I look at my base, which is 4, and my height, which is 2. So I know that my area is 8. If my right side is 8, I know that my left side is 8. Now I'm missing 2 sides. Which sides am I missing? I'm missing my top and bottom. So if I highlight my top and bottom, I can see that rectangle has a base of 5 and a height of 4, which would be an area of 20. And if my bottom is 20, I know that my top is 20. And if you look, those numbers match the numbers that I had by drawing a net. So you would add all of those up, and you would get a total of, if I start here, this would be 20, 40, 50, 60, 68, 76. So my total is 76 inches squared.